Coming up, the SABC mourns the loss of a staff member, Kifue Mkwailane. Taro Bester and his co-accused will appear in the Bloemfontein High Court on Tuesday. We'll have more details about Turkey heading to the polls. And it's a warm welcome to you live from our studios in Auckland Park, Johannesburg. This is SABC News Channel. You're watching The Week Ahead. You can interact with us on social media, our platforms, on Twitter at Week Ahead, hashtag The Week Ahead. I am Tipiso Magudumana. Thank you so much for joining us. Here's a look at some of our top stories today. SABC is mourning the loss of a staff member who was killed in a car crash while on a work assignment in Bloemfontein in the Free State. 42-year-old Kifue Mkwailane died in a car crash in a head-on collision between two vehicles on the N1 about 3 kilometers before Vier de Vlei Plaza from Bloemfontein. Yesterday, 2 people were declared dead on the scene. Mkwailane joined SABC in 2004 and he grew through the ranks before settling as a vision mixer, working for both sports and news. Mkwailane left behind his parents, daughter, 2 brothers and a sister. Now, the prim and proper looks that Dr. Nandipha Magudumana has been showcasing in her court appearances in Bloemfontein have come under scrutiny. There's been mixed reaction to how good she's been looking. Magudumana is the 4th accused in the case of aiding and abetting convicted rapist and murderer Taro Bester to escape from prison.
Magudumana first appeared with her face behind a mask. On her second appearance, the court ordered her to reveal her face as it wanted to ascertain that it was dealing with the right person. Thereafter, the real Magudumana came out. Nails, hair, and her makeup have been the topic of conversation, with questions about access to such services being asked. To add to her glam look, Magudumana also wears her wedding ring, an item which is usually taken and kept by prison officials after a person is arrested. Bloemfontein residents weighed in on her looks. Some say she should put on her brave face, and if makeup is her choice, then she should go ahead.
For me, for lack of a better word, I would say that Nandipha is remarkable. She's very pretty. Even like in a jail cell, she's still pretty. Her eyebrows are on fleek, her nails, her hair, like, you know, the thingy, the edges are always on fleek. So I like her. I like her style. She doesn't let her problems define her.
I think if Nandipha can have access on such facilities and it's not illegal, then why not? Then why not? I don't have a problem with her if it's not illegal, if it's legal.
Others wanted clarity on how Magudumana is able to access beautician services in prison.
I see this Nandipha matter a special treatment, so I'm not happy about it.
One would ask yourself for it. Nandipha is coming to the court, and then she looks pretty, she's got nails, she's got whatever. Then you ask yourself, how does she access all those? Anang, are they calling the whatever, the beautician or whatever to come, or is she going to the beautician, or what is happening? So if maybe we can be clarified on that, maybe we will.
The Department of Correctional Services says an accused who has not been sentenced has access to their belongings when they go to court. This is why Magudumana wears her ring. It has also explained that there are salon services in the prison run by inmates who are part of a training program.
As correctional services, we had to focus our attention on making correctional facilities places of work where more inmates participate in structured programs. Hence, to ensure that the skills and training is achieved through offender learning. Hairdressing sites and saloons are available in our facilities, and there is formal training offered in that particular space. And we've seen this program attracting quite a number of inmates with keen interest.
Social media has been abuzz with Magudumana's glam look in court. Kamogelo Siegwe, SABC News, Bloemfontein.
Meanwhile, the family of Katlego Bering says it's relieved that the truth is slowly beginning to emerge in the Thabo Bester case. Bering's charred body was found in Bester's cell at the Mangaung Correctional Center in Bloemfontein. The state witness explained how Bering's body was left in a dark room at the center for 5 days. This emerged in the bail application of 5 people accused of assisting Bester, the convicted rapist and murderer, to escape from the center.
Bering's corpse was left in a storeroom called the Dark Room for 5 days before it was moved to cell 35 where it was burnt. The state witness told the court that Bering's body was placed inside a trolley dustbin and pushed to the dark room by accused Teboho Dipulu. The court was also told that former G4S employee and accused number 6, Mutanyani Masukela, assisted Sinue Maswara to offload the TV stand that carried Katlego Bering inside the prison. It's also been revealed that on the day of the escape, Thabo Bester was wearing a G4S uniform. The state witness also submitted to the court that a funeral was staged and rotten meat and 3 bags of mealie meal were discovered inside the coffin when police exhumed the grave. Bering's family say the details of the court are unbearable.
The evidence that came out today was very devastating, shocking, and sparking anger, to be honest, and it's just unbelievable everything that one heard from this courtroom today. In the nutshell, I would still maintain that none of this evidence that qualifies any of the suspects for bail, for being granted bail.
It has been revealed that Matswara received about 150,000 rand directly from TK Nkwana, known to be Thabo Bester. Matswara paid Dipulu 40,000 rand and Tieho Makhotsa also received a payment of 14,000 rand. The other 2 were not paid. Kamogelo Siegwe, SABC News, Bloemfontein.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We are back again with more news in just a moment. Do stay with us. Right, and welcome back. On Tuesday, Thabo Bester and Dr. Nandipha Magudumana and co-accused will appear in the Bloemfontein High Court. To talk to us more about this, we're joined by Kamogelo Siegwe, SABC News reporter, who's been following the story. Kamogelo, let's just first start with what happened in court proceedings up until now, and then what is expected next week.
Okay, so what happened on the last day of the appearance on Friday? Or perhaps I should start with Thursday, where we saw Dr. Magudumana, through her lawyers, deciding that she will not be applying for bail as yet. They did make it clear that she's not abandoning her bail application altogether, but she would rather apply for bail at a later stage when they have investigated some of the new evidence that has come to the attention of the defense. What we have learned from one of our informers is that Dr. Magudumana and her defense actually want to challenge her arrest in Tanzania. We don't know the details of that, but that is as far as we know. So we saw the other 5 accused who are involved in the matter applying for bail. They submitted their affidavits on Thursday through their defense lawyers. And then the prosecution started with their first state witness. You remember that the court gave out an order that there shouldn't be any live recordings of any of the proceedings while the state witness is on the stand. So at that time, we didn't take anything live, but the state witness did give out crucial information about how the escape of Bester actually was carried out and who was involved in what participation they had in all the escape to allow Bester to leave the prison. So what then happened is on Friday, just before proceedings stopped, we saw the defense lawyers actually saying they would rather interrogate the evidence that was provided by the state witness on Monday, or rather not on Monday, but on Tuesday when the case comes back to court. So on Tuesday, we expect that all the 8 people who've been arrested, including Thabo Bester himself, will be on the stand. The prosecution did say that Thabo Bester, as well as Zolile Sikeleni, who is Dr. Nandipha Magudumana's father, their case will just be a postponement on Tuesday. We're not yet sure if Dr. Nandipha Magudumana will actually apply for bail on Tuesday, because her defense did say they're not abandoning the application, but they are not saying that on the 16th, when everyone is back in court, they will apply for bail. They will apply for bail when they are ready to apply for bail. After the postponement, then we will see the defense lawyers then interrogating the evidence that was submitted to the court by the state witness.
Kamkhwelo, obviously it's hard to tell at the moment, but just based on issues like the accused, particularly Dr. Nandipha Magudumana and Thabo Bester being a flight risk, do we know if they're likely to be granted bail?
From the legal experts that we have been speaking to, they are not likely to get bail, because the court actually looks at several things, including whether they're a flight risk. They look at the severity of their involvement in the case. So they have indicated to us that as soon as the court knows, for example, in the case of Dr. Magudumana, who has not yet applied for bail, but the court already would know that she was arrested in another country. So that one will definitely count against her. And with the evidence that has already been led, accused number 3 in the matter is Teboho Dipholo. He's the one who approached the police and confessed about his involvement in the case, and also mentioned all the other participants and what their involvement was. So perhaps that will count for him. But with the information that has come out and all the things that they did, remember there was also a corpse that was claimed at a government mortuary. There was a fake funeral that was held for that corpse, and the DNA from the mother of the corpse was taken and confirmed. So all these things the court will consider. As to whether the court will grant them bail, the legal experts are saying it is up to the court. They will consider that. But one of the things that was said by the state witness when the prosecutor asked him on Friday to say, what do you think would happen if these people, these accused, get bail? He was saying that there might be an uprising in the community because the community is involved, especially after the discovery of who the person was whose body was used to aid Thabo Bester to escape from prison.
Let's talk about the proceedings, Kamkhwelo. Will the public be able to watch it? Given the broadcasting limitations, and if you can also just tell us exactly what were they?
Pardon me, I didn't get the question.
I was asking if the public will be able to watch the proceedings and for you to talk to us about any broadcasting limitations.
Okay, so as far as the proceedings go, we can take proceedings when the magistrate is speaking. We can take the proceedings when the prosecutor is speaking. But as far as all the state witnesses go, we are not supposed to take any visuals, particularly visuals, but we can take audio. So the court has ordered that the audio that we take can only be used at a later stage. This is particularly to protect the identity of the witnesses. So the public will definitely get information because we are allowed to take audio and we are allowed to tweet as well about what is happening in court blow by blow.
All right, thank you very much. My colleague Kamkhwelo Sekoe, who will be following the proceedings, Thabo Bester and co-accused trial. Now, the deaf community is waiting in anticipation for President Cyril Ramaphosa to sign the 18th Constitution Amendment Bill into law. The bill seeks to make sign language the 12th official language under Section 6 of the Constitution. The process of amending the Constitution first went through Parliament's Constitutional Review Committee before the 18th Amendment Bill was developed and passed. SABC's Mercedes Percent looks at the use of sign language in Parliament by an ANC MP who is themselves deaf.
Wilma Nivo-Drugen has been an ANC member of the National Assembly since 1999, with a 2-year break between 2014 and 2016.
In her supplementary question, Wilma Nivo-Drugen asked the minister if developed countries were prepared to go an extra mile to reduce their emissions.
The slow pace of commitment to reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by developed countries is of serious concern, as developing and poor countries suffer the most from global warming. Developing countries take longer to recover from climate changes caused by floods, droughts, and amongst other things.
She has been a member of the Communications Committee too. Nivo-Drugen also sits on the Justice and Correctional Services Committee. She recently had questions about Thabo Bester's escape during the G4S meeting with the committee.
Now, I just want to understand, why was cell 35 specifically allocated to Bester during that time? And are the 17 that you have normally full?
Nivo-Drugen is elated that the National Assembly recently passed the Constitution 18th Amendment Bill with more than 300 votes.
We actually just needed 267, two-thirds, and we passed it with such a huge number. So we'd like to thank all the political parties who supported us, unanimously passed the bill. You know, the deaf community marched in 2006 in all the provinces. I'd like to thank all the people who were involved in that protest, in the march. PANSALB has given us support. Department of Arts and Culture has given us support. Department of Basic Education is already implementing South African Sign Language, the home language. So there are many role players. There are many role players, not just Parliament, but outside of Parliament. So really want to thank them all for that.
The lawmaker and the deaf community can't wait for President Ramaphosa to sign the bill into law.
The president still has to sign it into law. I understand it went straight to him. How soon would you like to see that?
Yes, well, we wish it was yesterday. We wish the president signed it already yesterday, as soon as possible. But yes, we understand that there is a process. Parliament does need to inform the presidency, and I believe the Department of Justice needs to be informed that Parliament has passed the bill, and now it's up to Parliament to draft a memo to present to the President for him to sign. So we are looking forward to that. It's taking too long, but we hope it will be done soon.
But how has Parliament made it possible for persons with disability, including Nivo-Drugen, who uses sign language, to participate in the business of the National Assembly?
Members of Parliament have the right to participate fully in the affairs of Parliament, participate in debate, to attend sittings either of committees or of the House. And Parliament must always ensure that it's accessible to members of Parliament, but also to the general public. It must make provision so that it can be accessible. But for members of Parliament in particular, for instance, members who would require sign language, or members who use wheelchairs who need to access the buildings and to sit in the chambers, Parliament has an obligation to enable that to happen. Obviously, members come to Parliament through their parties. So within the parties, there would be some allowances, disability allowances where applicable. And there would obviously be a contribution that Parliament makes through the party to the members. So the contribution will be made to the party, and the party would obviously make the arrangements for that specific member. But the principle is that Parliament has to be accessible and members of Parliament have to be able to participate fully.
And is the National Legislature ready to cater for more public representatives who use sign language should they be elected to serve in Parliament in future?
We are ready because there is precedent. We are ready because institutional arrangements are such that we must accommodate these arrangements. They are as entitled to be here as anyone else, and they are as entitled to participate here as anyone else. And they should not really, the institution must do it such that they don't have to feel different from the rest of the people who are say members of Parliament or who are here to perform a function in Parliament. So my view is that based on what has been done before, the Secretary to Parliament has always made adequate arrangements, and I have no doubt that the Secretary to Parliament will continue to make such arrangements for members of Parliament to participate fully in the affairs of Parliament.
When asked about the significance of having the 12th official language, as next year will mark 30 years since South Africa achieved democracy, Nivo Drugen says the deaf community wants to start celebrating sooner.
Yes. Oh, I hope not next year. Before the end of this year, we need to celebrate. 2023, we need to celebrate. Yes, the deaf people are really looking forward to this. The executive members of DEFSA keep asking, when is the president going to sign? And I keep telling them, watch this space.
Once President Ramaphosa has signed the bill into law, it will make provision for sign language to become the 12th official language of the country. This would also be the 18th time that the South African Constitution has been amended. Mercedes Besant,
SABC News, Parliament.
Well done.
Now, in keeping with the legislative requirements on the publication of political party donation disclosures, the Electoral Commission, the IC, will be briefing the media on Tuesday, the 16th of May, 2023. The report will present the political party submission of audited annual financial statements for the financial year ended 31 March 2022. For more on this, we're joined now by Mawethu Mosri, Deputy Chief Electoral Officer, Outreach. Very good evening or afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Mori. Let's just start with the report itself. How is it compiled? Do you depend on the political parties to make submissions, or do you have power to get that information yourself?
Good afternoon to you, Tsepiso, and your viewers. Indeed, the report requires submissions from political parties, particularly documents relating to their financials for that particular financial year. But also we then review the submissions that they had done throughout the year. And thirdly, we have the other fund, which is the public purse fund for political parties that needs to be fully audited by the AG in order for us to have an annual report.
Okay. So the report itself, what can we then expect to see?
The report itself will, obviously, it was the first year of this legislation being in application. And also during that year, we had a general elections for local government. So it will indicate to us the kind of contributions that various political parties received in that year, but also how they then managed the end of their financials reporting to us as the commission. And the are very interesting variations and differences in how that was handled by the various political parties. So this report that the Commission will release on Tuesday will give you all the details in that regard.
I want to talk about some of the changes that have come into effect since the bill was signed into law by the President in 2019, the Political Party Funding Act 6 of 2018. The significant changes, what are they, and how has this impacted also on the collecting of data?
Obviously, it was the first time, so we do not have a baseline of the picture before the Act came into operation. The report that we are releasing on Tuesday is basically going to be giving the country its first baseline of what will transpire in the space of being transparent with who funds our political parties and consequently probably a political influence on them. So it is indeed a first time, and we are not seeing trends that are comparative to the past, and therefore it is really a new environment for us as well as the political party.
But Mr. Mosley, it's not an entirely new environment, as in there is publicly available information that the parties obviously have volunteered about who's funding them, how much, and there's also the issue of thresholds. So let's talk a little bit about that from that prism.
From that prism, we indeed have in the Act the thresholds, which is 100,000 rands per annum from one source to the party, as well as outlawing any foreign government funding and foreign entities that support political parties can do so in kind, not in direct funding to political parties. So that's the environment that has changed drastically with the introduction of the law itself. And parties have, in this first year, shown contributions by domestic funders, and have also shown the in-kind contribution by foreign entities. Now, the data that you also referred to of before the Act came into operation, it's obviously data that is unreliable and therefore doesn't provide an institution like ours reliable information to do a comparison.
And I'm glad you raised that, because your chief electoral officer has even touched on the issue about the debate around the efficacy of the bill. So tell us what then is different from what we've learned in the past, and what you are doing, what you're bringing to the fore, and if there has been wholesale cooperation from the political parties.
Let me start with your last comment, Tepiso, and say there's been very good cooperation from political parties, even those that did not receive funding from any source have been cooperating with the Commission, and we are grateful for that kind of cooperation. However, there's public views, specifically during the first year, that indicated that they are not happy with some of the disclosures certain political parties made, but we go by what is declared to us and documented as such. Now, in terms of the efficacy of the law, there is indeed debate on whether it covered all the angles of transparency in terms of political party funding. There are obviously a few other things that we have identified in the administration of the Act that we will outline on Tuesday, and the issues and the gaps relating to that.
All right. Thank you very much for speaking to us, Mr. Mosley from the IEC. Just speaking to us about the report that's going to be tabled on political party funding. We're going to take a quick break. Do stay with us. This is The Week Ahead. And welcome back. Now, as the wage negotiation season gets underway, labour unions are calling on companies to refrain from using the current ailing economy as an excuse to give workers below inflation increases. They're also calling on government to fast-track the companies' amendment bill aimed at ensuring that employers comply with their wage agreements and disclose their finances. The average wage settlement for workers this year is around 6 to 6.5%, but workers in various sectors are bargaining for inflation-linked wage hikes, while others are pushing for double-digit salary increases.
Over the years, wage negotiations have proven to be difficult and protracted. This is mainly because of the current ailing economy and rising inflation. The cost of living has been on an upward trend, leading to retrenchments and some business closed shop. Unions say workers have been hard done over the years on the wage negotiations, and that although negotiations are often a mixed bag, they found employers not honest about their finances.
So often workers are at the receiving end. Often employers would put workers' interests at the very last on their to-do list. Often employers rather seek to give themselves an increase or to give dividends to their shareholders or to invest money elsewhere. We have to have employers who negotiate in good faith. So that's also why we've supported amendments in the company's amendment bill, which require employers to disclose their finances to the trade unions so they can really have a better understanding of what actually the employer can afford and what they can't afford. Because often at the negotiation table, the employer will just simply say, we can't afford it. Tough luck, there's no money available.
The Labour Federation says it sees anything below inflation as a wage cut. It's also accusing employers of pushing for lower wage increases while raking in millions of rands at the expense of workers.
Workers will spend about a quarter of their salary on transport to get to work, on taxis or buses, or the petrol crisis, etc., hits them quite hard. If you have an 18% increase in the electricity tariffs, it hits a smaller income household much harder than it hits those who are better off. So we try to look at inflation plus, but the results vary. Most of the unions have been able to negotiate at least inflation-linked increases. So we've seen settlements in the clothing and the textile industries, which are basically inflation slightly above.
Labour experts say the affordability factor is a critical aspect, with both the public and private sector employees struggling to get the best out of the bargaining process.
We're at the high end of an interest rate cycle. We have unreliable electricity supply. We have the load shedding issue. We have also impacting on many employers the weakening of the rand against the pound, the euro, and the dollar. So all of those factors impact negatively on employer cash flows. So those are the kinds of issues that restrain employers when they approach the wage negotiation.
Keeley has described 2023 as a tense year of wage negotiations, but says there are so far notable small victories for workers in some industries.
Well, I think if we're looking for current examples of settlements, a good one would be one reached I think yesterday, which was NUMSA and ArcelorMittal, the steel giant. There you have a 3-year wage agreement. The increases are a combination of 6.5% and CPI related each year, and increased similar contribution increases by the employer to medical aid contributions. And something you're starting to see in wage deals quite often, the so-called once-off payment to employees.
Economists, on the other hand, have called for a balanced approach in wage negotiations.
We understand that workers want to be compensated for price increases as reflected by a rate of inflation, but we must make sure that wage negotiations play out in such a way that existing jobs are not put in jeopardy. Often, employers can only meet the demands of trade unions through a reduction in employment, through layoffs of some of these staff members, and that is what we should avoid.
Unions are calling for the amendment in the company's amendment bill, which will require employers to be more transparent with their finances and disclose this in full to the trade unions during wage negotiations. Rousseau says as unions push for the company's amendment bill, they too must be open about their finances.
Transparency runs in both directions. If trade unions want more transparency, they should similarly offer more transparency in terms of negotiations. By the looks of it, salary demands are all over the place. I've heard about salary demands of 15% at Eskom, which is clearly outrageous. It's clearly unacceptable even to put such demands on the table in an environment where people have difficulty finding jobs.
The experts say the further the economy takes strain, the more difficult it will be to ensure smooth wage negotiations that will avert industrial action that often leave workers compromised and the economy weakened further. A silver lining, they say, will only come through an uninterrupted supply of electricity that they believe will immediately raise economic growth and lead to the creation of well-needed jobs. Katlego Legodi, SABC News, Johannesburg.
All right, now let's take you quickly to my colleague Samkele Maseko, who is speaking, or rather the ANC Secretary General is speaking following an NWC meeting. You'd recall that the ANC is in KwaZulu-Natal, the top leadership, to speak to the provincial leadership about some governance problems and some issues that have been of a challenge to the provincial governance as well. Let's take a listen.
Just a doorstep, so it's not a presser. Shall we go? See if there's any question from anyone. And of course, if you're comfortable that the SG has covered everything, happy to do that. But I do have, I see that Samkelo Tabani Maseko's hand is up. And Abongile? Yes, Samkelo and then Abongile.
Thank you very much. Samkelo from the SABC. Just Mr. Mbalula, the basic summary of some of the reports you've received thus far. What are some of the main concerns coming out of the 11 regions, particularly on an organizational perspective, but also on a governance perspective, knowing that in an area where that you don't govern in Josiah Kometi region, in the Tugela district municipality, there is no water, yet we've got many dams there supplying water throughout the province, yet the people in those areas don't have water. You go to a municipality like Usunduzi, the capital city, it's the state of governance is deplorable there. There are potholes left, right, and center. You come to Etegwini, it's an economic hub of the province, but they've had issues of service delivery as well in this municipality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I take you?
Yeah, I'm actually covered. Thanks, Sam. That's exactly what I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Well, we are in the middle of our meeting, and these reports are coming in. The issues highlighted is electricity in general, load shedding in particular, where you have a situation in most of these municipalities that the transformers have been stolen and the infrastructure is being attacked by criminal element, and that affect electricity flow from the grid in service of different communities. These are the challenges that are facing us. Where there are potholes must be closed. There's no doubt about it. We need to get reports, which we are getting, about financial viability of these municipalities and why potholes are not closed. And there's no time for lamentation. We believe that municipalities, big and small, must do something about closing of potholes. We need to get those answers, but we need to get action going from our municipalities when it comes to those particular challenges. Water is a big challenge. We are with the Minister of Water, and then we need a strategic intervention, especially in the municipalities that are highly affected by this challenge of water, Msunduzi and so on. But let me tell you, there is good reporting when it comes to also some of the municipalities, something that is not talked about. We've got highly qualified Section 57 in majority, people properly employed. One of the reports we got, one of our municipal managers have got doctorate in municipal planning, and which is something that is scarce, because municipalities are synonymous with lack of performance and a total disregard of qualifications for Section 57 officials at the level of the municipalities. And then some of the municipalities which reporters actually came out, something that you can't believe as well, particularly in Richmond, 78% of the people paying for services. I think it's something that you don't hear, because everybody expects everything from government. People have abandoned paying for services in their different local areas. There are good results in some of the municipalities where we govern, albeit the challenges that we've got, which really our attitude is that there must be a campaign, potholes must be closed, and sinkholes and all of that. ANC municipalities need to give answers. Why are we not closing potholes where there are potholes, maintaining the roads? Of course, we do understand the revenue base for most of the municipalities is a bigger challenge in terms of governance that confront local government, but how do we actually intervene? So we need to address those. And then the Achilles heel, load shedding. Load shedding is a bigger problem throughout the country and in some of the reports that we are actually receiving here. So by the end, some of the things that we can do should be done without lamentation, like as if we are not in charge. Where we are in charge, potholes must be closed, roads must be fixed. And we will get an elaborate plan and briefing from the side of Water Affairs. What are we doing to address scarcity or challenges of water in the bigger municipalities like Msunduzi, which we need to address?
Thank you, SG. Last quick ones, and also SG, I thought I was done, but it's the women, sorry. Over there, my sister, and yourself.
Thanks for something. I am from the SABC. I would like to just direct my question to the Provincial Secretary, because we haven't had an opportunity to speak to him since the NWC has arrived. Mr. Mtolo, just to gauge your view of the visit by the National Working Committee, but also, do you agree, what is your view that interventions need to be made in the province because there have been some challenges in certain areas?
My question is directed to the SG, Lethiwe from ANC. You just spoke about load shedding, but as a whole, the country is facing an energy crisis. Are there any interventions? I know that the Minister of Electricity was hired not so long ago, but are there any interventions, because the country is in constant stage 6 and economic cities or economic hubs like Durban are suffering greatly?
You want a second bite, Samgelo? Yes, please. You're the last one, and then we wrap up.
Mr. Mtolo, last one from the SABC. On the issue of Section 154 of eThekwini Municipality, what is the rationale behind the ANC PEC working with the provincial government in wanting to place the economic hub, which is this metro, under Section 154, the deployment of Kesha Slubisi? What were you thinking when you came to that particular determination to seek that particular approval and working with the provincial government? Thank you.
Okay. And we'll start with the PS, and then the SG will then wrap us out.
No, thanks very much. I think, greetings to all of you. I think the misunderstanding that the NEC lead at Dutuli House is a very misconceived approach. NEC lead structures of the organization. It would be irresponsible of the NEC to not interact directly with structures. Then besides that, they send deployees to each and every province, but they must come to structures that elected them and see the feeling, and so that they can provide support. It's an ordinary work of the National Executive Government, which, as the province of KwaZulu-Natal, we highly appreciate. And then I think what the SG is saying, we support that there must be interventions where there are failures that are because of ineffectiveness and efficiency. We need to address those challenges. And then I think the issue of Section 154, I know when we are young, those of us who have been in the sector, for example, in local government, this thing started under Minister Mafumati when he was still leading a department that was called DPLG, in terms of project consolidate. That when government assess, because the Constitution does appreciate that we are a central government, we are a unitary state. When there's a failure in a lower sphere of government, the national government and the provincial government are empowered by Section 54 of the Constitution to come and provide support. This support may come in terms of bringing technical skills and also bringing turnaround support and also bring financial support. Because what is happening in eThekwini, for example, beyond some subjective challenges, but there are objective challenges in eThekwini in terms of their dilapidated infrastructure, in terms of electricity, water and sanitation, which also affect their human settlement project spending, which need a huge turnaround, huge planning, and also huge injection of money that eThekwini may not have on its own in terms of, because eThekwini is also owed a lot, billions of rands by both business and residents. Then that Section 54 is based on that. Thank you.
Electricity crisis is with us. We will go back and forth, stage 4, 6, depending on the intervention plan that has been announced, whether it is making an impact. When we attacked this thing of electricity, we did make a point that this is a huge challenge that must not only be reversed but must be dealt with decisively. We realize every day that the problem is bigger than what we thought. Still, our plan is to deal with load shedding, and that is the mandate we give to government decisively. It could be today, tomorrow, or before end of the year. But we want load shedding to be done away with in South Africa once and for all. We get reports. We will get a report tomorrow as the National Working Committee. We'll give you a briefing. Sputla will be here. We will reflect on the current challenge. I mean, it is with us almost weekly. And whether we're making progress, and how far are we, and what other interventions that are needed extra. President has spoken about car powership or car power in terms of electricity. These are the things that government don't need to explore, but must do everything in its power to ensure that we reverse and do away with load shedding in South Africa. So it is a huge challenge. We've characterized it. It affects business, it affects households. It's a difficult thing, this load shedding. So we have to deal with it, and that is why we have a focused approach with the Minister of Electricity at the helm. And we'll get report also about the powers of the Minister. If they are not there, those powers, what is delaying that? Because we believe there is no time to waste time. We need an energetic minister, which is what Sputla is displaying. He's got our support, and albeit the frustrations that he continues to confront, particularly in dealing with the interventions that have been made. We want ESCOM alongside many other things to also be strengthened and become stronger and so on. As the ANC, we do support them. Decisive action must be taken every day, every night, where we face with these challenges of electricity. But we'll give a more comprehensive report once we receive the state of affairs from the minister by tomorrow.
Okay, so the conversation continues, but thank you very much, guys. That brings us to the end of it.
Thank you.
Can I just confirm?
That was the ANC's Secretary General Fikile Mbalula alongside the Provincial Secretary of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, Bheki Nkosi Mtola. But of course, I am not alone. I am with my colleague Ayanda Mhlongo. Just the essence of what we are hearing from them, saying that they need to have some interventions organizationally in the province and also in governance. Also speaking about that Section 154 of eThekwini municipality. What is the sense of what you are getting that may be transpiring from the NWC's visit and interaction with the PEC now?
Well, let's firstly start, Samgele, with the reasons why the NWC is in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, of course, to assess the state of not only the ANC, but in terms of governance in the province. You'd know that there's a number of challenges, while not unique to KwaZulu-Natal, while not unique to the eThekwini Metro, but they are serious challenges that the ANC is confronted with here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Also, very importantly, as we know, and which is one point that was raised by the Secretary General, is importantly what they did this morning, the visit by the President to Ward 73 in Chatsworth. I think the party would have been amiss to not go to Chatsworth using their top leaders to try and sway voters in that particular ward. If you look at the performance of the ANC in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, they've lost more recently in by-elections, I would say no less than 13 wards, and many of those wards were under the control of the African National Congress. So there needs to be work that the party needs to do to regain the ground that they are losing. And of course, coming to what we've heard today in terms of the discussions that are going ahead, let's again quickly recap on what happened yesterday with the National Working Committee members, leaders that were deployed to the 11 regions in the province, interacting and meeting with their structures. Of course, what we gathered at this point from the Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, was that they are still continuing to receive reports. It is going to be focused today, of course, it's going to be on the Provincial Executive Committee. I guess from the engagements that they had with the structures on the ground. Remember yesterday, Sam, they were meeting with branch members, they were meeting with the officials that are deployed to the local municipalities, and whatever was raised in those engagements yesterday, of which we were not privy to because most of those meetings were held behind closed doors. And so today is going to be the time for the Provincial Executive Committee to respond to the issues that were raised by the branches. By the way, and this has been said, that one of the reasons why the NWC was brought here is that there has been members of the ANC, structures of the ANC, that had written to the NWC complaining that certain issues were not being handled correctly and worried about the state of governance in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And it's important, Sam, how important the province of KwaZulu-Natal is to the ANC in terms of one, influence that this province has broadly within the ANC, but also looking at the numbers that, in terms of the votes, the number of votes that the ANC will get from the province of KwaZulu-Natal. So it's still a bit early to tell, I would say, in terms of what the decisions are going to be, what the outcomes of this very, very crucial meeting is. Some are of the view that serious interventions need to be taken, going as far as to say disband the province of KwaZulu-Natal, because clearly the leadership that is currently at the helm has been unable to deal with the challenges, and they're concerned about the state of the ANC and the future of the ANC as we move towards the elections. But from what the Secretary General has said to us, they're still receiving those reports, but they're also taking a firm line from what we're picking up from him. He's saying that people need to be accountable. There has to be action that needs to be taken where it needs to be taken. So they are taking a firm line, it appears, and so we now just have to wait and see. Eventually, this meeting is probably going to drag on way into the night, and at that point, possibly tomorrow, we might get an indication of what form of intervention is going to be made, if any.
When you look at the hard lines that they are taking, particularly you in Moses Mabhida region, with the MEC of Education, Mbali Fraser, and the Secretary General, whom he was literally, well, you went inside being told that he took a firm stance and saying that heads must roll in the bumbling of the school nutrition program within the province. Also go to the ANC president speaking yesterday, saying that next year's election is all about local services. Potholes being closed, infrastructure, the issue of electricity, and the issue of water. But you go to an area like the Uthugela district, where Josiah Kumete region is housed, there is no water running in those specific areas, a region where the Deputy Provincial Secretary and the MEC of Transport in the province comes from.
I think, to be frank, Sam, there has been serious failures in certain areas. And, one of the responses that we will get from leaders in the province would be issues of floods, what happened during the July unrest. But some of these challenges, as you're mentioning, municipalities within the Josiah Kumete region of the ANC, the Tugela district, these challenges have been there forever. The people in those areas have not had water for the longest time. Mkhanyakuta is another one. The area of Umkhanyakude, in the furthest northernest part of the province. Again there, since 1994, residents in those areas will tell you they have never had water, in many parts also electricity. So as you're mentioning, Sam, that obviously issues of water and electricity are not challenges that are unique to the province of KwaZulu-Natal, but the communities on the ground would tell you we cannot wait 29 years and we are still having to go to collect water in the boreholes. We're still having to go to the rivers, where projects have been over the years announced that projects were starting. Water is going to be delivered in those areas. You go back 5 years later and the promises that were made to these communities have not been fulfilled. So that is the challenge on the ground for the ANC. You also mentioned an important point in what the Secretary General said yesterday. In fact, yes, he was very firm in terms of him not being happy with how the school's nutrition program was held in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and he was firm. He said to the MEC that heads must roll. Action needs to be taken. If not, they were going to act.
All right, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Colleagues Ayanda Mhlongo and Samkele Masego just speaking about that NWC meeting with the PEC in KwaZulu-Natal. You've just heard the Secretary General not really give him media briefing, but being doorstepped there to answer some of the questions around their meetings. Right, that's where we're going to leave it for today. Thank you so much for joining us this weekend for the week ahead. Until the next time, it's goodbye for now.